Good morning. It is September 6th, 2024, and this is the OSU Turfgrass Team Times. Online, we got Dr. Tyler Carr and Pamela Sherratt, Dr. Garner, Dr. Shetler, and Todd Hicks. I don't think we're going to be able to make it with us today, or Dr. Wu. The state has got the ongoing drought problems, and obviously the southern part of the state, with data being released showing that it's some of the worst they've ever seen. On the positive side, other than rust, disease activity has been severely limited because of how dry it is. But rust certainly has kicked up on older ryegrass situations. So you see the orange color on your feet as you walk through. That's going to be some of the pustules getting up on those surfaces. Shouldn't be a really large problem, except those lawns that may need a little bit of fertility to kind of get them back later in the season, as long as the rain turns. With that, we'll take it off with Dr. Carr.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of similar types of discussions that we've had the last couple weeks. I saw this tweet earlier this week, a day or two ago, after they released the newest drought monitor. We'll show that here in a sec. That 62% of Ohio is now in a moderate drought or worse. And the meteorologist for the local ABC affiliate in Columbus said that from June 1st through September 5th, this year is the #1 driest stretch on record. So that's since they started collecting records in 1878. So we've had in Columbus a little over 5 inches of rain through June, July, August. So 3 months. So it's pretty unprecedented, and those of us who look outside, we can really tell what's going on here. This is the newest drought monitor. Like you said, a lot of our population is in some type of extreme, and this is actually not the newest drought monitor for some reason. Here, let me pause for a second, and I don't know where that went. 1 second.
One question, Dr. Carr. Do you think that the humidity and the extreme humidity that we've seen this summer, has that been a savior in some ways? That we didn't lose as much water out of the soil as if we had been in a place like California or somewhere, so things could have been way worse if we had not have had the humidity that we've had.
Oh yeah, I mean, our ET would have been through the roof. I mean, we still had our normal kind of ET around point, 2. We were losing about a quarter, or 2/10 of an inch a week. Sorry, a day. If we were somewhere out in like the desert Southwest, or even in areas like California, up into Oregon, they get ET rates up into about 1/3 of an inch a day. So yeah, that humidity has saved us from that front. Because I mean, if anybody has gone out to the Pacific Northwest during the summer, it's a drought during the summer. They usually get about 100 days, and so it looks like what it looks like here. And they shut down pretty quickly. Now they can guarantee or count on a lot of rain in other times of the year to kind of make up for it. But yeah, it probably has saved us. So this is a worse map. This map is worse than the map I originally had up. So I was like, yeah, that number's not right. A lot of us are under drought. We're starting to see some of the exceptional drought move into more areas in south and southeastern Ohio. Looks like the Cleveland area is okay for right now, Cleveland, Akron. But it's just getting worse and worse. And from everything that we're seeing, it doesn't look like there's a big end in sight. This is 7-day predicted precipitation. So you're seeing that northeastern part of the state in the blue, over a 1/2 inch. You get closer up to the northeast corner of the state by the lake. You could see probably, up to 1.5 inches in some of those areas, which will really be good. But those aren't really the areas that are struggling as much currently. Southeastern Ohio, we're seeing some in Central Ohio and other parts of the state. The rain's welcome. I mean, we're not going to turn it away, but these aren't drought busting rains that the rest of the state we'll see. And it's been so dry that if we do get a lot of rain, who knows how much of that's actually going to get into the soil at the beginning or at the onset. So more doom and gloom. This is the 1 month drought outlook for this month, September 1 through 30th. So this was released on the 31st of August. For those of you listening to this, about a little more than half the state shows that we're to develop more drought conditions over the next month. And then most of the other parts of the state are to persist. The ones that are under drought already, it's expected that these drought conditions persist. There's a little sliver in some of the northeastern counties. Cleveland's not included in this sliver that they're expecting no drought. And to go even further, the map for the next 3 months does not look any different, like at all. I'm going back and forth. I had to make sure I was using the right map. It looks the exact same. So from August 31st to November 30th, they're kind of expecting these similar conditions. Now, for those of us who are growing turf and working in this industry, it's not the best news, right? And we lost Ed, so he'll be back. I'm glad he made us all co-host. It's not the best news for those of us trying to manage turf right now. A lot of us are trying to get overseeding done or starting overseeding, thinking about fertilization and weed control. A lot of these right now, if you have dormant conditions on lawns, we can pause these activities. It's not a, don't do it type of mantra, but we don't really need to be fertilizing dormant turf. We don't need to be spraying herbicides on dormant turf. We just need to stay off dormant turf, and hopefully we get some rain that can help us recover. And for those of us who are able to irrigate, we can really start thinking about our fertilization. I know we've had some decent temperatures recently. We're starting to have we're going to have a little bit warmer temperatures in the 8 to 14 day, but this is good weather for fertilizing cool season turf as long as you have irrigation. And so putting out the majority of your nitrogen fertilizer in September, October. If you have irrigation, it's it's still a go. And a lot of things still apply if weed control and things like that can still apply if you have irrigation. So we can talk more about those moving forward. But for now, it's kind of a holding pattern for most of us who don't have irrigation.
Thank you, Dr. Carr. Sorry, it's like a technical glitch there. I disappeared and reappeared. Dr. Shetler is not joining today, but he did indicate that while fall armyworm egg masses are showing up in a lot of places, no damage has been reported yet. He is kind of interested to see what way the cold front that's coming through this weekend has kind of an impact on activity development. But if problems do arise, or you're starting to see damage, pyrethroids would be the most effective and cheapest option if possible. So he will be back next week, and at that stage we may be into the throes of real death and destruction from the insects. Pamela Sherratt, what have you got?
Okay, so just adding on to what you said there from Dr. Shetler, he did put out a really nice article on fall armyworms on Buckeye Turf website this week. So we've got that out on social media, but that's a really nice article to read and just be prepared, right? I did get fall armyworms in my lawn in 2022 in the fall, and I would be very surprised if I did this year because my lawn is dormant right now, pretty scorched. So on irrigated turf, especially, as you said, be vigilant and be prepared. But check out that article from Dr. Shetler. So again, yeah, just reiterating really what Dr. Carr has said. We're in a holding pattern. Turf that's in the shade hanging on in there, and turf that's irrigated is, you know, doing okay. But everything else, certainly in central Ohio and those drought areas, is pretty scorched right now. How do you know if it's dead or dormant? We know that, you know, our one of our recommendations during a drought like this is to sort of let it go dormant, because sporadic watering it, letting it go dormant, watering it, letting it go dormant will deplete the reserves in the turfgrass plant. And so from a management perspective, let it go dormant. But we do have some turf grasses that can only be dormant for so long. And so our Kentucky bluegrasses and tall fescues tend to do pretty well. Those of you that have warm season grasses like Bermuda grass will no doubt be able to identify that right now. If you weren't sure if you had Bermuda grass in your lawn, now's the time to go out and look, and you will find it. So that's obviously doing okay right now. From a personal perspective, I know that the rough bluegrass is crispy and dead, and a lot of the perennial ryegrass areas in my landscapes in full sun has died. And the reason I know it's died is there's no hydration in the crown. So if you get down on your hands and knees, get into the base of the turfgrass plant, look at the crown, the growing point of the plant. If it's hydrated, if you see the white hydrated growth in that crown area, chances are it's just dormant. If it's completely crispy and there's no moisture in there, chances are it's dead, and there's going to need to be some major renovations once the temperatures and once the conditions are right for renovation. So I have spoken to a couple of grounds managers this week who are having a terrible time because, and again, I know this from a personal perspective because my kid plays soccer, traffic is continuing on these sports fields. So if you go to some of these communities, like my kid plays in Dublin, some of those fields, a lot of those fields up in Dublin are irrigated. And so they're okay. But a lot of the community fields are not irrigated, but games are still taking place, traffic is still taking place. So on top of the drought and the possible death of some of these grasses, particularly the perennial rye and the rough bluegrasses and the annual bluegrasses, etc., heavy traffic is going to compound the issues on these fields. So going to have a, you know, pretty major renovation plan in place for that. And then just thinking about next year, I know it seems early to be thinking about next year, but if this has been an extraordinary year, but we need to plan, I think, for what we do in the future to make these urban green spaces, especially that are usually on pretty bad soils, more resilient. How can we make these soils hold more moisture, you know, less runoff, less compaction? How can we look at improving these urban soils, whether it's in a recreational community grounds or sports fields, whether it's a lawn? What can we do to make these more resilient and more drought tolerant in the future? I think is maybe something that we could have conversations about. I think that's it. Again, as Dr. Carr said, we're in a holding pattern, kind of don't do anything that's going to further stress the turf because it's not going to recover. It's not growing right now. And hopefully we'll get some rain. Very last, again, one quick plug-in again for the OSFMA. Have an event coming up on the 12th at Scott's Company in Marysville. It's education, there's ODA credit. It's an opportunity to network with your peers. And we're going to tour and get an insight into fertilizer production, R&D that's going on with Scott's right now. And I think it's a very unique opportunity to see an operation like that, find out what's going on in the industry, and meet up with peers and see how they're coping with this, as I said, extraordinary. One last thing, and Dr. Gardner will be on next week, and I know we're not even talking about weed control until later, probably in October, but as an observation, I found it interesting that shallow rooted weeds that I normally have, like ground ivy, clover, they're gone. I'm not seeing any of those in the lawns, certainly in central Ohio. So it's just been an extraordinary year. Our number one question at Farm Science Review, which is next week, is always, how do I control ground ivy? And I've got a fairly good feeling that's not going to be even a question this year because it's gone.
I think that's correct, Pam, because Dr. Gardner mentioned the fact that sedges, I think last week he said that sedges have not been a problem this year. And again, that's tied to the lack of rainfall for the most part. That is, I guess, good and bad news, but some really bad news overall. It's one of those times where the less you do, the better off you are, I think is what we want to think about along those lines. With that being the case, I would say thank you to Dr. Carr and Pam. Dr. Carr is sharing his screen. On that screen, he's got the various ways to access us. So bookeyturf@osu.edu. We get plenty of questions coming through there. And then the various social media sites, OSU Turf, OSU ATI Turf, and then the podcast, Turf Team Times. And so what we will do is see you all again next week, and be aware that as temperatures start to cool down, hopefully at some stage, these updates start to go to bi-weekly towards the end of the growing season. We'll kind of keep it play it with the ear to the ground. With that, we say thank you, and we'll see you all again next week. Thank you.